worry that people like you have swallowed your own narrative to the extent that for some reason you cannot see the wood from the trees. You have spent so long gaslighting us. You idiot! Listen, I have told you there is vile things happening that differ.
Why are you bothered about?
Get him off. I don't want to listen. I do not want to speak to a man, frankly, who seems to have a pathological problem with the truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Julian Discourse. Why is it that whenever the political establishment is forced to confront widespread public anger, their immediate reflex is to smear ordinary citizens as far-right? In this explosive TalkTV clash, watch Alex Phillips absolutely erupt on a woke guest who tries to dismiss legitimate public concerns about borders and integration as mere fascism. When he audaciously accuses her of condoning violence, Alex delivers a fierce reality check and kicks him off the air. Hit subscribe and let's watch their narrative collapse in real time.
The reason I say I think the government are frankly dangerous is because we have a situation that is clearly mushrooming out of control. It's not being quelled. And when Sir Keir Starmer turned around first time and said, far-right thugs, a load of people online, to me, demonstrably looked like quite ordinary people, started posting their photos and doing hashtag, you know, I'm a far-right thug and so on and so forth. And as Tim and I were discussing earlier, when you talk about far-right as a political concept, they're normally people with matching shirts and a manifesto. When this started as people with ordinary concerns. Now, after the backlash against using that language, he then went on to do the same again. And to me, and I want your opinion on this, to me in doing so, what he did was further anger and alienate people who are using, you know, a crisis in this country as an excuse to carry out the most awful violence and thuggery and behaviour that defiles our flag, frankly. These people need to be locked up. They're monstrous. But it also, I think, has excused really appalling behaviour on the other side, who now seem to be justified in righteous indignation. We're talking about Muslim communities, young men from those communities who feel disaffected, who are picking up in some instances weapons and forming mobs. So actually, far from making the situation go away and calming it down, I would suggest that he's thrown an accelerant onto the fire. Do you think he's handling this well?
I think he's handling it fine. I'm very, very, very confused by the concern in some quarters of the media, including yourself, about the terminology far right. Why do you have an issue with that being applied?
Well, okay, fine. Okay, let's do this actually. Let's do this. Tell me what is far right, and especially related to what is going on here. Explain far right. Give me the definition, please.
It's quite self-explanatory, but it's far to the right of the political axis.
No, well, explain it. You say it's self-explanatory. Yeah. That's tautological. That's like saying two twins. What is it? Explain it, list it, identify it, give it a shape, give it a texture so we all understand what you mean when you're using those words.
So it's a political ideology, obviously, and it's people whose political ideology, and like the far left, you know, there'll be many different elements of it, and there's many different kind of variants of far left. There's people who will agree with each other and disagree with each other on the far right.
Do you think these people kicking in windows and acting like hooligans have a political ideology?
Some of them, of course they do. The EDL is a political organisation.
Some of them, Alex, you know, you see them making Hitler Nazi salutes. Some of them actually have swastikas tattooed onto their bodies.
I get that. Yeah. But when people were saying online, does this now make me far right as well?
Yes, it does, but Alex.
No.
The problem is,
when ordinary men and women were putting their pictures up on Twitter, who frankly just looked like, you know, Bob and Jane next door, and people who served in the army and former police officers, and people of all colours and creeds saying, I am now a far right thug, were they?
We need to address a bigger problem here, okay? And it makes people uncomfortable, and I'm sorry about that. But when people say, am I far right? Am I racist because I hold these views? Then if you do hold those views, then yes, you are.
Okay, what are these views? Where do we define this? Because when this began, right, there's definitely a hardened, vile core of people going out right now, mobile around the country, trashing our country, defiling our flag. That I agree with. But this started, actually, with a huge caucus of people concerned about uncontrolled immigration.
No,
is that a far right?
It didn't start with that, Alex. It didn't start with that. It started with lies and misinformation from people who seek division. You know, Andrew Tate.
This has got nothing to do with Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate did not suddenly get a lot of ordinary Brits upset about what is changing in their communities.
Because people, yes, he did, because people follow him online. He's the most searched man on the internet.
I worry that people like you. I worry that people like you have swallowed your own narrative to the extent that for some reason you cannot see the wood from the trees. You have spent so long gaslighting us that problems we see happening in our society don't exist and that they are our fault, and you're doing it again. You are repeating that language and that narrative. When are you going to go into listening mode and understand actually the discontent comes from something? It comes from, be it material need, it comes from a lack of integration and social concerns. When are you going to understand that? And instead of just
it sounds to me like you're making... It sounds to me like you're making apologies for racism and fascism.
Of course I'm not. You idiot. Listen, I've told you there is vile things happening that differ.
Why are you bothered about...
Get him off. I don't want to listen. I do not want to speak to a man, frankly, who seems to have a pathological problem with the truth. Idiot. This is why we're not solving the problem, Tim, because you can't talk to them. You cannot explain to them that there are people in this country who are really upset with the way society is, without him turning around and saying that somehow I am condoning or inciting the violence happening, which I'm absolutely not doing.
What you just witnessed on TalkTV is the exact moment an elite smear campaign hits a brick wall. When Alex Phillips challenged her guest to give a simple working definition of the term far right, he completely froze. And when he couldn't back up his rehearsed talking points, what did he do? He deployed the ultimate establishment deflection, accusing a conservative host of making apologies for fascism just because she dared to explain why ordinary citizens are frustrated. Think about how this feels in your everyday life. Imagine you live on a street where a broken water main is slowly flooding your basement. When you and your neighbors finally march down to City Hall to demand they fix the pipe, the mayor doesn't send a plumber. Instead, he points a finger in your face, calls you a dangerous extremist, and tells the police to investigate you for complaining. That is precisely how the working class is treated today. To understand why public anger is boiling over, you have to look at the undeniable facts and timeline from the summer of 2024. Following the horrific Southport attack on July 29th, long-simmering societal frustration over broken borders and integration failure erupted into nationwide unrest between July 30th and August 5th. While right-minded conservatives unequivocally condemn violence and looting, look at Keir Starmer's response. Instead of addressing the deep roots of public anxiety, Starmer held a Downing Street press conference on August 1st, declaring a crackdown on far-right thuggery, weaponizing a blanket label to smear ordinary law-abiding citizens who simply want secure borders. Wikipedia Plus. The ruling class uses these labels because they are terrified of accountability. They want to shut down the conversation because they cannot defend their own failed policies. But as Alex Phillips showed, we don't have to sit there and take their insults. Thank you for watching Julian Discourse. If you refuse to be silenced by establishment labels, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and I'll see you next time.